It's like serving it up on a silver platter, every activity, every phone call, every lead. I would have to spend 20 minutes going to find out all this information about the opportunity before I could even call. If you're making 25 of the calls a day, you're not getting any sales time.
Today, I'm excited to sit down with Aharon Horwitz, CEO of Fullpath, and Brad Title, CEO of Gubagoo. Together, we're peering into the future of in-dealership customer experiences, exploring how data is reshaping the landscape, and getting an exclusive look at their cutting-edge technology. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: OpenLane, Icon Technologies, and Fullpath. And now, let's get into the show.
Aharon Horwitz, welcome back. How are you, man?
Good to be back. Good to see you, Yossi. How are you? When we last spoke, no one knew who you were.
No one knew who I was. You're right. I re-listened to our prior episode and there was no video of me. And I was like, wow, it's been that long. That's a good one. I also want to welcome Brad Title, president and founder of Gubagoo. Brad, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. So I'm sure people are wondering, wait, why do we have Aharon and Brad on this together? But we'll get to that point shortly because you're working on some exciting stuff. Aharon, I want to kick off with you. You mentioned last time we spoke. So I re-listened to our podcast and it was pretty funny because I got to the end. I was about to click to exit it and verbatim, this is what I said at the end. I said, I'm scared for our next conversation because I don't know, what's going to be the progress. I mean, where are we going to be as an industry? It's pretty funny because in our last conversation, which was in January, by the way, I say things that today just sound funny. I'm like, oh, what's dealers' appetite for these new tech products, these AI products, right? It's stuff that today, just 10 months later, it's not even a question. It's like, what appetite? Like we've beat that drum, like the AI drum many, many times. But I do want to ask you a question, which is similar, which is what has changed in the last 9 months since we last spoke materially when it comes to dealership technology, AI? What has changed in your perspective, if anything?
Sure. Well, first of all, great to be back. Great to be on camera with you where people can see who you are. Great to be with Brad, my friend over here, who we're going to be partnering on something really exciting with Gubagoo and Reynolds. We'll talk about that. But I'd say that the main transformation since January is that dealers have come to understand that their data architecture is really, really important for their business and for their KPIs around sales, ROs, and the things that really matter. And so dealers today are all out there hunting ways to get the siloed data, the mess of data, into one clean or at least manageable place so that they can then do things with it. So that's one thing that's changed, this whole concept of data. We've been talking a lot about the concept of data ups, which are kind of opportunities for sales that aren't hand raisers in the traditional showroom lead, showroom up, phone up, form up, but rather an up that you derive from the data and then can outreach to, right? More of an outbound approach. So I just think that dealers understand that. That's one major change. And you're seeing that in what they're purchasing, and you're seeing that in a lot of the conferences, what's headlining the different presentations. The second is that AI has really gone mainstream to the point where no one knows really anymore what it is. So it's gotten confusing. We're in the confusion phase, and we're going to soon emerge from the confusion phase into the sort of background phase. I don't know if you guys remember the early 80s. Yossi, I don't know if you do, but Brad and I maybe remember music from the 80s. There used to be those moments where, remember like those synths and all the electronic music was like brand new. And there was an article I remember reading, I think Fast Company, where they talked about how like when any technology is new, everyone just like wants to have it front and center. And then at some point, it just becomes what we do. All music today is digital. We now work to make music sound less digital, right? And I think it's the same thing with this AI that in CDP, we're talking about it. We're talking AI, CDP. In the end of the day, all that stuff should just fade to the background and be part of how we do our work. So we're in the confusion stage. We're in the saturation stage. But if you ask dealers, and we just surveyed dealers, 83% are saying, I'm going to spend more money on AI going forward.
We shared that data point. It's pretty wild.
So that's a pretty crazy research. Now, I'll tell you this. The key thing now for dealers is to start bringing it all together and weaving it together. And that actually brings me to the conversation we're going to have today, where, Fullpath has done so much to build out data hubs, data hygiene, data alignment, data instrumentation. we've been looking for ways to go deep into the sort of core tech that dealers are using and partner with that core tech to bring what we have to the enormous resources that they have. And this leads me to Brad, who was on his own journey over at Reynolds and Reynolds with the Reynolds team. And he and we, met around this. And, kudos to Brad for having some vision on this. He's like, oh, this instrumentation and this approach to leveraging data for audience building and for outreach and whatnot could work really well with what he envisioned over at Reynolds with this thing called the Curator. And he, invited us to have a couple chats. And before we knew it, we were just geeking out over the tech integration. And then it's just morphed into this amazing partnership where we're able to have a tech, in commercial partnership with Reynolds and Gubagoo to bring the CDP that we have into the world of their CDP, to bring the instrumentation that we have from the web and other data, to bring the marketing automation that we've built that's smart, the AI stuff, right into the system. And I'll obviously let Brad speak more to that, but it really does connect to where we're at in this moment, 8 months, 9 months later, since we last spoke, Yossi.
So you've been busy. So Brad, can you tell us a little bit more? What does this really mean for dealers, right? What are you accomplishing here now with this partnership?
Sure. So, in the simplest terms, dealers need to be able to take advantage of the data in the CDP, not just for the outbound market. They need to be able to connect that consumer experience with user engagement. And that means you need to be able to connect to these back office systems like the CRM tool, the chat tools, the omni-channel tools, the retailing tools, so that you can engage the user at the time they need to connect with the consumer, with what happened online, with their behavior, with their conversations they had prior. And so when you take the data that you possess inside the Fullpath platform and you inject more first-party data than I think anybody in automotive can, such as the company that backs us, Reynolds, that has over 100 plus companies, where we're now unifying across all these databases of organizations, one record per customer across all these companies. And then being able to, with one single identifier, push this information into the direct-to-dealer CDP. We're now able to inject more horsepower into the solution. And then when you take advantage of all the best practices that Fullpath possesses with marketing and engagement, when you take that data and then engage the user when they're in their inbox and be able to find out everything about the lead before you even open it, or when you're making a phone call and a 6-month follow-up, how many payments are remaining. That's the data that we're re-injecting back into our system at the time that the users and the dealership need to engage. So that's one very, very simple example of whether the phone rings, the door swings, you're in your CRM tool at any point in time, Curator will be able to, through the CDP, inject the information back to the user. Another aspect that's really important that I noticed in the space was, I think that we essentially, between the two organizations, brought database management into the CDP world, because it's a very loosely used term. Everything's a CDP. I thought conversational commerce was an abused term back the last 10 years. This just trumped it. So understanding how to be able to
timely remark.
Yeah, now to be able to understand how to segment the data so that I'm not just talking to everybody in a campaign that's running in an audience, but make sure that you're able to engage 100% of all your customers and all your VINs in the system and talk to them with relevancy based on if they bought only or they serviced only, so that you can track if you're retaining customers with this marketing, or you're reactivating your lost customers, or are you spending through it and just acquiring more. When you have that type of insight that we're unveiling at MRC, we're going to be able to show our dealers how to get more lift. We'll be able to explain, if they're not seeing the lift, where the absorption rate's being impacted based on retention, reactivation, campaign management, etc. I think the third thing that would really be beneficial to the dealers is, the last time I ever saw a single source of truth for a dealership, unfortunately, because I'm this old, was the 80s. And they used to call that CDP a DMS. It was the only source of information. And then, of course, fast track to today, you got CRM tools, retailing tools, mobile apps, omni-channel tools, all this siloed data. So when the CDP segment really started to blow up and everything is in one source now, to see the opportunity to bring database segmentation into this and business insights and analytics, so that, you could actually in a CDP measure how well your retention marketing is doing or your reactivation. And you don't even have to be involved with that vendor to do it, because that's the real power of all the data in one.
Yeah, I want to talk about the impact of that for a second. So essentially, if I'm doing like Spark Notes here, right, you're taking what you guys accomplished here is you're taking a customer data platform, a CDP, a CRM, and a DMS, you're combining it, right? Pretty powerful. You're integrating everything into one.
We're connecting them. We're
Connecting. Yeah. Now talk to me on very practically, how does this impact the consumer experience and the dealer experience?
So when we talk about the dealer experience first, right? They need to be able to use the CDP. So you need the audience activation and you need first party data. And our unified intelligence engine is really the first of its kind in automotive, where we're injecting a lot of first party data now into the CDP that dealers need to be able to grab from across the industry when people are interacting and transacting, behaviorally clicking and shopping. So that's the first thing we're doing that's going to bring tremendous value. That's very pragmatic. From the user experience perspective, the fact that we already have the best practices through this partnership with Fullpath and can engage the consumer, and we can audience activate with drip campaigns and use the AI to connect with the consumer. That's the major portion of this product. What's new is the fact that that's great. We've engaged them online, but what happens when they come back into the store or when they submit a lead or they walk into the showroom or you're calling somebody from the phone in the BDC or internet department? How do you take that information and connect it with the person at the time they're engaging the customer? That's the big impact on consumer experience when you start a chat with me and you just put the letter or the word Bob into the conversation. And I'm able to identify from that IP address that this is Brad Title, lives at this address. Here's what's in his garage. Here's how many payments he bought and serviced. And here's the cars he was looking at. So it tells the operator, this is the things you need to suggest. And this is how you want to engage. And you could go from, supportive to super creepy if you want to, and auto engage. Those are things that you can't do if you didn't own all these different types of assets. And so that's just a great example where we know how to meet, greet, and engage the customer based on previous activity. And that's been my narrative from day one. If you can't connect the consumer experience with the back office, we're only getting half the power. When you look up the definition of CDP, it's a unified record pulling transactional, demographic, behavioral data into the system. It doesn't say just for marketing, because that can be used for insights, analytics. It can be used for better decisioning. It can be used to measure last click attribution versus first click, where bad decisions are made all the time. It can also be used for engaging the user in different tools. And those are some of the fumbles that you'll hear us talk a lot about as an industry that precludes CDP from being able to embrace and deliver the true power to a dealer. And this partnership really unifies all of these pieces and allows for us to together deliver that to our dealer.
I'll say that I think there's two phases that will benefit the dealer, or there's two things that get done when you talk about this partnership between what is going to become, the partnership that is going to become the power behind Curator, as we've released it and started to roll it out. One is instrumentation. So dealers really struggle today with getting everything that they need brought into a single place so that you can do stuff with it. And that doesn't mean that everything all throughout has to be a source of truth, right? As Brad talked about, it's not simple anymore. You have all these different disparate silos with their own database records. But what you want is one place where you can do actions, activities, audiences, supporting salespeople that brings in the best of everything into one spot and tries to resolve it all, right? So that instrumentation is hugely benefited by the partnership between Reynolds, Gubagoo, Fullpath here, because we all cover different parts of the ecosystem. And then Reynolds has this crazy sort of, I guess you'd call it in like Latin terms, like sui generis, right? Or unique, whatever it is, this unique asset base of data, first party data, more so than, than what you would find in almost any other case. So that instrumentation and then the resulting outcome becomes really powerful when you do this. Secondly, then becomes how useful is it? And here I think is where it becomes powerful for consumers. In the Curator implementation, when a salesperson is looking at their CRM where they're doing all their work, they're seeing everything, right? I liken it to like a pilot helmet in an F-15 or F-16, whatever, right?
I mean, I'll pretend like I've flown one, but
Exactly. I assume you guys do fly on the weekends. Brad, you may indeed fly ones on the weekends. I don't know, but anyways, you take those F-15s, you put on that helmet, and you have these heads-up displays that include information from so many different sources, right? And it's all about understanding what's most important at that moment for that person who is both trying to acquire a vehicle or get a vehicle serviced, and the person who's trying to help facilitate a great customer experience. And our ability to deliver it at the right time, in the right moment, with the right information, in addition to doing behind the scenes auto activations that involve SMS, email, outreach, etc., at a level that has more personalization, more one-to-one capabilities than ever before, is really the headline here. And it's actually an unprecedented achievement, this Curator, because there are very few examples in auto that have, or I don't know of any out of auto, I can think of several that have unified this amount of data and then made it actually both accessible to the people who need it, and then actionable for automation, marketing automation, sales enablement, and otherwise.
This episode is brought to you by OpenLane, the leading online dealer marketplace for used cars. OpenLane brings more than 25 years of innovation to the wholesale automotive industry, solely focused on making wholesale easy so dealers can be more successful. Their marketplace offers a fast and transparent way to source used and fresh vehicle inventory. Looking to sell? On OpenLane, you can turn vehicles into more cash fast. With a nationwide network of buyers, vehicles listed on OpenLane sell in less than a day on average. OpenLane is the industry leader in innovation, rolling out new tools to make buying and selling easier. Visual Boost AI leverages the power of AI to help buyers review vehicles quickly and bid with confidence. New to OpenLane? Sign up now and new sellers receive a $2,500 sale fee credit. Learn more at openlane.com or click the link in the show notes below.
Aharon, let me ask you this though. So you've been a great successful company, right? You've scaled and you've had some form of this for many years now. What actually happens now what are the unique data challenges that this enables, the partnership enables, to solve in the auto industry?
Yeah. So if you walk into my R&D hub, right, the Fullpath R&D hub, our largest team by far is focused on prying data out of every possible source throughout the industry. It's focused on
getting the data.
Yeah, any little pathway, any little opportunity. We have people making phone calls to do deals for API access, for unique. It's an unbelievable amount of effort to link in data from all these disparate sources. And what was so cool here was, the Gubagoo and Reynolds folks were like, hey, we're doing this partnership. Here you go. Here's a tech team. If you need APIs, if we have to open up another database field to bring it into this platform, there's no friction. It's just an incredible opportunity for a company like ours to provide our special sauce to their system and get a huge synergy that's far greater than the individual parts.
Brad, I'm going to use an auto analogy for this because I can't help but my brain goes to these analogies. So this is essentially what you're doing is like you're taking a sales team that's starving, that's your R&D team, and you're flooding the floor. So now it's like you're searching for, let's just say hypothetically, you were working with 10 pieces of data per month. Obviously, this is hypothetical. And for those 10 pieces of data per month, you were netting a dealer one extra sale, right? By leveraging all that data. Now you're leaping to 500 pieces of data per month that can net dealers, hypothetically, 30 extra sales, 100 extra sales, whatever. But you just have a lot more to work with to make better decisions. Is that partially correct?
That's partially correct. Yes. The more data, the more actionable the audiences will become, right? With all the information. And the more dynamic based on what they're doing at that time will determine which audience they're bouncing through as far as engagement, which is a pretty critical component. But there's also the whole enrichment of the data that allows you to do a better job of re-engaging the customers. And one of the unique things that we committed to was to ensure that we are doing data enrichment and data hygiene. So from changing the address, updating the mobile to residential, appending emails, opting in, so that when these audiences are running in different segments, it's actionable and ready. The data can be used to be engaged, and you'll be able to use the correct email or be able to text the right customer, and it's got the right permission backing it so that on demand or in automation, you're able to deliver these messages at the right time. with the correct data points that will give that consumer the right experience they're looking for. The AI is really a key piece to when you see Curator, where I'm calling this person back and the AI is telling me everything about the lead or what this person did on the web through sales enablement on Fullpath. And I've got an opportunity before it even became a lead, prevent it from going somewhere else. So the hygiene and the data enrichment being injected at the time of the unified record also is a very big component of how this data will connect and engage and create this impact, where if everyone's getting the email and they're getting the relevant message, you're going to get a higher response rate. You're going to get a greater conversion, which will translate into more sales. And if you're talking to them with the right message at the right time, through what I keep referring to as segmentation, you're always talking to 100% of your database, which is another very interesting piece for dealers to understand. When you look at all these audiences, how do you know you're hitting 100% of the bins at the right time with the right message? How do you know they're not stepping on each other? Full-pass audience are integrated so they know how to move from one audience to another. And when you segment it down, now you're even taking it to the most granular level of relevance with the consumer. And that's how we're going to see higher results.
Gents, besides the immediate impacts, how do you foresee this impacting just data utilization and AI in the automotive industry? I'm just curious, we're entering this, this more advanced era of just, hyper specific targeting and really knowing a lot about these customers. How does this impact the broader industry, right? It's not ultimately what trends do you see kind of spawning out due to this stuff?
So I'll tell you what I see in our platform that probably gives you a pretty good indication of where things are going to go. We initially built everything as fully automated. And anytime we built things that weren't fully automated, the products failed. So all of our successful products were fully automated. You'd hook up the data and then you would automate digital marketing, you'd automate emails, SMS, etc. What we did over the past year was a project called Project Workbench, where we took all the things we'd automated and we actually built manual versions of them that could be custom designed and managed by dealers. And we're seeing that, 30-40% of our customer base are becoming these power users, where they're building these micro audiences using extensive filters. So they'll say, anyone during this period of time who had a loan rate from this to this, who have a end of payment date at this rate, who have a certain, 72-month term, and they'll just go on and on till they get to an audience of even sometimes 23 people. And then they'll literally take that list with the perfect offer and they'll SMS, email, build a custom ad audience. That's a little too small, but theoretically, if it's big enough, build a custom interface on the website, all from one central, simple to use ecosystem. And in the back end, they can unleash the AI agents to just do all the content on their own and even do the outreach on its own. So what you're starting to see down the road is that as the data flows through the pipes, a chat is suddenly aware of things that the chat had no idea about beforehand, and it can subtly use it in the chat, maybe to what pictures of cars it shows are going to reference colors of the pages the person has browsed, right? Different types of interactions like that. And what's going to happen ultimately is that dealers who connect these systems together, either through a solution like Curator or off the Curator world, through something like Fullpath, are going to have a very strong data strategy that's going to outcompete their peers that don't. And they will literally be able to start predicting revenue in a way they never have been able to before, because they can almost engineer sales out of their data. And I can show this economically. I'll let Brad speak here a bit because I think he has some ideas on this. But there is an economic case here where we're overspending on marketing, and we need to bring that marketing spend back in and spend it on mining our first-party data and leveraging that first-party data in order to make revenue for dealers. Because, by the way, much of the marketing outreach is already in your first-party data. You just don't know it because you don't have the tools to know it.
And just to tag along with what Aharon said, the automation and the AI that's dealing inside the CDP to engage communications with consumers. I think that the AI is, for us, what I can tell you is we're releasing our CRM advisor in our application that will be able to read the data from the CDP and talk to the user when they're in the CRM tool about things that are most relevant to whatever task they're doing at that moment. Because you pull up a customer record And now I'm being told by the CDP through the AI, hey, this is what you need to know. Current payments left, how much equity, how far they live, did they buy your service? Here's the 6-month lease follow-up. Having that kind of intelligence and talking points that communicated to the salesperson is very beneficial when you think about BDC staff that have all these orphan customers assigned to them and they have to communicate and call, and how much effort do they put in if it's not their prospect being worked. And when you start to see how we engage the user based on when you're in a tool with all this information coming from the CDP, that AI is where I think it's going to catapult sales success, because you can get a lot more accomplished, a lot more effectively. Some of the information that I'm seeing generate, I've been saying that it's like serving it up on a silver platter. Every activity, every phone call, every lead. I would have to spend 20 minutes going to find out all this information about the opportunity before I could even call. And if you're making 25 of the calls a day, you're not getting any sales done, so the efficiency that you're getting, and the economy of scale and speed with the most absolute information that makes it simple, whether you want to make a deal or not, is
Brad, I want to, practically speaking, right? Any dealer or no dealer wants to manage multiple dashboards. It's just a pain point. I've spoken in the past about just tech fatigue in our industry, which is another great reason why we're seeing so much integrations, trying to simplify that. What feedback have you received with regards to that and actually managing all this, great stuff, but the actual execution of it?
Well, dealers need war rooms with all the tools, right? We've got dashboards and different systems of our own. Of course, everybody wants a single sign-on, single access, and be able to view everything universally. Not to be talking too much about the CRM, but the whole strategy that we're bringing out is to have a unified data, have a unified solution that connects to all the tools, and you can see everything in one system. So
the dashboard is unified as well.
Yeah. When you're in the CDP, but you work every day from the CRM, how often do salespeople get access to the information in the CDP that will help them be more successful, right? Where what we've done together is collaboratively be able to embed all this information inside the customer record in the CRM that the CDP needs you to know about at that time when you're looking at the customer. That's never been done. And that's one less login. And to the vast majority of people that want that information in a CDP but don't have access to it because it's the chief marketing officer's controls, all the relevant information they need, whether you're service advisor, sales manager, it's right there for them all. And what's great about it is when you're looking at Brad Title in the store's records, the UCP is showing you that, hey, this is Brad Title across all 38 of your stores and all the transactions that they've done from in their garage, at the household, from that address, their spend, things that you would never know. So imagine you've got somebody that's never been in your store that you're not greeting very well, but it turns out they're a fabulous customer and you didn't know it. And there's 4 cars in their driveway that all have equity you can make a transaction off of. And that's the kind of things that we're bringing in. And then again, to go back to the AI, imagine being able to use this data to be able to cross market, trade in pending cars coming off lease that other stores in your group are looking to take on trade and put on their lot rather than go to auction, versus sending them back to the factory. So matching incentives to deals that you couldn't complete because you couldn't get them bought, but another vehicle at a different store could be done through the automation and AI to match and message and communicate. That type of intelligence is where I also think we're going to springboard to.
By the way, the reason, the dashboard element here is part of the reason we're referring to this component within the rental system as the unified intelligent engine, because it really does unify all the different intelligence you have about that opportunity into one spot and makes it really easier for the person who's operating it, usually a salesperson.
And then it also connects back to the DMS, the CRM, the omnichannel, all the different systems where people are interacting in real time with people. So you don't need these other dashboards.
This episode is brought to you by Icon Technologies. Icon Technologies was founded by dealers for dealers to solve the daily challenges your dealership faces. Their no-cost lot management platform with Find the Car, Find the Keys technology makes finding inventory easy, while their dealer-branded Connect app drives customer loyalty and revenue. At Icon, they're more than a tech provider, they're your partner. Schedule a demo today by clicking the link in the show notes below and see how Icon Technologies can help drive your dealership success.
I want to take a quick step back out of all the great stuff you guys are doing together. What was it like putting the partnership together? Like, give us some of the juicy behind the scenes of what this actual process has been like. And like how, and also, and Aharon, I think this is also specifically for you, like how difficult was it as, of course, a smaller company, a startup? Brad, I know you were formerly a startup. I mean, you've been obviously acquired and have grown much since, but I'm just curious to know what was that entire process like for the two of you guys?
Listen, prejudice is a real thing, right? And the most important thing is to be aware of your prejudice and handle it. So, I was aware of Gubagoo, Brad from afar, but then, when you hear of Reynolds, you think of this just, massive kind of tank moving through the fields, and you're like, okay, how is that going to work? And it was really an incredible. So you sometimes again have this moment where you're like, oh, actually, this is totally different than you thought before you encountered it. It was such an open-minded approach by the Reynolds team. Now, part of that was Brad, who is a startup guy, driving vision and whatnot, but they're also from within driving it. And they were really willing to take risks and bring their tech people to move quickly on fast cycles and drive it forward. And this to me was sort of this feeling was heightened when I went to visit the Reynolds headquarters, and they have this incredible museum in their basement with like all their old, like their mainframes and their computers and the boards tracking the different versions and stuff. And you just see how the people at Reynolds can, on the one hand, literally dissect a circuit board and tell you exactly what processor is running the DMS from, whatever it was, 25 years ago. Yet at the same time, they're like fully holding in this whole idea of how we're going to bring everything together and make it happen. So for us, it was actually an awesome experience. We pulled a team together, a dedicated team on our side to really own it. And they've been interfacing really effectively with the Reynolds team. And we've come up with a lot of cool ideas together that we're able to implement through this tech relationship. So I've really enjoyed that partnership aspect of it. Brad, I don't know if you feel how you see it, but that's how
listen, we met last year at MRC. I shopped in other products, looking at everybody, started with Mike, met Aharon, and the partnerships aren't always about just product. It's about relationships. Can you work with the folks? And this was probably one of the easiest, best outcomes for a partnership that Reynolds doesn't move as fast as normal, as we did normally. They moved real quick. They're vigilant. They trusted the strategy. They don't normally partner. We did a partnership where we could divide and conquer and deliver. And I mean, there was no friction. Everybody wanted the same thing. We all brought something to the table. The leadership of Reynolds is really doing things a lot different. In the design of Curator, our goal is to make sure that we make sure data is king. We make sure we connect experience. We make sure that it's easy for dealers and smarter to engage. We want to make sure that they have all the access to the data so they can utilize it to get the maximum results. And those are things that make Reynolds sound different because of the past, which this is a new leadership. And then when you work with Aharon's team, I mean, I just said it as I jumped on the call. I love his team. They're great. I mean, everybody from the Reynolds development group and their group, they came together. I mean, we did this whole thing in less than 8 months. I mean, that would tell you that this is the least friction project I've ever seen. And nothing moves fast when you do contracts at Reynolds because of how big of an organization they are, but they move quickly here. And it was never any friction. It was
it's been really enjoyable to build together. I mean, in the end, all we want to do is build. Like, speaking for Brad and I as founders, like, we want to build. We probably recruit people to our companies who want to build. And then it was amazing to see within the Reynolds leadership people who want to build, and we've been building. So dealers are going to benefit.
The Reynolds organization, all the group of companies, is so excited about this week. NADA. I mean, this is a very important part of the future strategy because it's the brain that will communicate to all the other systems. And with AI evolving, it'll even have more capability over time for doing things that you only dreamed of.
So Brad, give us a prediction for 2025. Now you have this wealth of data just being combined, right? Reynolds, Fullpath, all being combined. How is that, 2025? What's the prediction of like, how is that going to turn just data into actual actionable insights for dealers in 2025? What are we looking at?
I would say that the current system we now have is already actionable, and just being able to receive sales enablement and AI insights that identifies in the CDP and be able to communicate to the salesperson in the customer record of the CRM at the time they're viewing it or in the work plan. Highly actionable. I think the big thing is that we're just beginning with this release, right? So our evolution of development and functionality and additional enhancements is coming. But as these stores roll out and go live, the amount of data that we're ingesting while consolidating and managing, it's only going to make our platforms more intelligent. And when I say more intelligent, I mean from the marketing automation, from the conversational commerce, from the retailing, from the penciling of deals to one-day deal finds or save a deal. The prediction is that our platform's intelligence on language models is going to evolve at a very high rate, which will allow us to do a lot of predictive things moving forward.
I think this is a real challenge moment for auto because we're talking about advanced stuff like CDP and AI and building all that stuff. Outside of auto, there's huge shoulders to stand on because for 20 years now, companies have been relatively free about, opening stuff up, interacting stuff, making things interoperable. Automotive has remained relatively siloed. And so a lot of what Fullpath, I think, what I'm proud of about Fullpath outside of this Curator project for a moment is that we found a way to kind of give this infrastructure that you can scale onto by connecting lots of different things. What's so, I think, exciting about Curator is that this actually is, and, given the market, Reynolds owns a huge percentage of the market. With the addition of Gubagoo and others, there's a lot of dealers here. This could be an amazing scaling platform for these dealerships that take Curator to build out data strategy at the level of quality that exists in sort of the best practices of any industry. And so I think it's really a potential path-breaking moment for the industry if this gets the type of uptake that we believe it will, where it will reset the bar for what it means to have a real connected data strategy and give your customers a great experience. I think it's just exciting to see partnerships, exciting to see data flowing, exciting to see things working for dealers and optimizing for the dealer's needs and consumer shopping habits. So it's just a really exciting moment. We definitely want to get people on board and to come check it out. So please be in touch with us.
Our big launch will be at NADA. This is the unveiling that just happened. So lots to come.
All right, gents, appreciate you guys sharing all this insight. I'm really excited for your partnership. If anyone wants to learn more about this, where can they go?
Gubagoo.com. Hello at Gubagoo as well. Or the Reynolds website.
Yeah, and of course, we'll put a link in the show notes below as well. So, all right, guys, appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to catch up after this. We'll see how everything progresses.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, Yossi.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.